Okay, Bruchim Haba and welcome everyone. We have a long-awaited shir, your favorite time of the week. Imponderables on Parshas Chukas. Fasten your seatbelts. We have a whole list of questions today. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 10 questions. Let's see how many we get to on Parshas Chukas. Rashi says, what is the inyan of the ched of the egal? What is the inyan of the egal? What is the inyan of the para aduma? Why a red cow? So Rashi brings the famous exegesis of Rav Moshe Hadarshan that if a kid makes a mess, you call the mother to clean up the mess. So let's say the son of the shivcha makes a mess, you call the mother to clean up the mess. So too, the egal was a sin. An egal is a young calf. You call the mother, the para, to come rectify the sin of the golden calf. As we know, Rashi brings from Moshe Hadarshan that the para aduma was a tikkun for the ched ha'egal. So let's try to analyze this analogy. This is a question that my friend Rabbi Aryeh Leib Fest asked me on Parshas Para. Let's take this analogy. If a kid makes a mess, you call the mother to clean it up. By the ched ha'egal, who made the mess? The cow made the mess? The Jewish people made the mess. So we should call the parents of the Jews who sinned to clean it up, not the parent of the cow. I mean, if let's say a kid makes a mess in the palace with chocolate milk, you don't call the parent of the owner of the chocolate milk. You call the parent of the kid who made the mess. So did the egal make the mess or the Jewish people made the mess? Okay. Then Rashi says, why do we bring 3 species? Eitz Erez, Ezoif, Ushni Seiloas. It corresponds to the 3,000 Jews that sinned by the egal. This parallel needs study. Because the 3,000 Jews who sinned at the egal, they were one entity. They were all equal. They all were involved in the egal. But here you have 3 species, which are different from each other. There's a Eitz Erez, there's an Ezoiv, a Shni Tailas. If it would have been, let's say, 3 Ezoivs, so maybe that would be a better analogy. But to 3 different species, it doesn't seem so analogous. Next question. Rashi says, why do you take the cedar wood and the hyssop? The cedar wood is the tallest of all the trees. The hyssop is the lowest of all the trees. It's a siman that someone who was arrogant and sinned should lower themselves like a hyssop and like a worm. Question. Was the ched ha'egal a result of gaiva? Was the ched ha'egal a result of gaiva? Ched ha'egal wasn't a result of gaiva. They wanted a leader. They didn't know where Moshe Rabbeinu was. Where do we find the ched ha'egal as a result of gaiva? So it occurred to me, maybe we could say very simply, Chassam Sofer writes that the reason why Hashem sort of allowed the egal to happen or sort of led them in that direction to some extent is that based on the teaching the Chovos HaLevavos, that sometimes there is something which is not a sin, which is worse than any sin, and sometimes there is a sin that's better than any mitzvah. And the Chovos HaLevavos says sometimes a person never does an avera, then they have the biggest avera of all, and that is arrogance. Sometimes a person is a very big tzaddik, they start to think that they're God's gift to humanity. So it's worthwhile for Hashem to encourage to some extent or allow the ched ha'egal so that we would not be guilty of a bigger sin, namely arrogance. So it seems like the reason why the ched ha'egal happened is here it is, we're coming out of Mitzrayim, we're flying high, we saw the Meira Gadol, we saw Zakeli V'Yanvehu, and there was there does seem to be there was a danger that we were in jeopardy of becoming arrogant. So Hashem made us do the sin with the egel so that we would not have the arrogance of not having a sin. But again, that's not necessarily consistent with what Rashi's saying, that the source of what fueled that chait was arrogance. Okay. Then Rashi says, why is the Misa of Miriam juxtaposed to the Para Aduma? So Rashi says, just like karbonos are mechaper, so to the death of the righteous are mechaper. What carbon are we talking about? There's no carbon here. So Rashi must be referring to the Para Aduma. But is the Para Aduma really a good example of a carbon which is mechaper? Aren't there much better examples of karbonos that are mechaper? Okay. Then Rashi brings Vatamas Sham Miriam. Says Rashi, Miriam died Beneshika, because the Sifsei Chachamim says, it says Sham by Aharon, and it says Sham by Miriam. But here's my question. Why does Rashi need to tell us that Miriam died Beneshika? Is there a question? Is there some kind of difficulty in the words of the Psukim that Rashi is compelled to tell us that Miriam died Beneshika? Rashi's job is not to collect interesting midrashim. Rashi is telling us Pshutai Shel Mikra. So why does Rashi have the need to tell us that Miriam died Beneshika? We continue, Parak Chaf Pasuk Vav. It says that Vayiplu al Pneihem. Parak Chaf Pasuk Vav. Klal Yisrael complained they had nothing to drink, they fell on their face. If you remember in Parshas Kairach, where it says that Moshe and Aaron fell on their face, why did they fall on their face? Rashi brings, this was already their fourth sirchain. They sinned with the Egel, by the Mesoinanim, by the Meragla, and now Kairach. So Moshe Rabbeinu got weak. Why doesn't Rashi here say they fell on their face? This was already the fifth sirchain. Why doesn't Rashi comment about that? Next, it says Moshe gathered all of Klal Yisrael into a small area. Says Rashi, this is one of the places that a small area fit a lot of people. Question. Why did Rashi have to tell me this? So for that I would say Rashi said this because how could they possibly, Rashi's bothered, how could they possibly all have fit Pnei Hasala, right in front of the rock? But my question is, why did Hashem need to make this miracle? For what purpose did God have to make a miracle that all the Jewish people could fit in a small area? What was the tachlis? What was the tayelas of this miracle? Let's go further. Rashi says that Hashem told Moshe. Rashi explains to us that Aaron HaKohen died misas nashika, and Moshe Rabbeinu told Aaron, take off your begadim, dress Elazar, close your eyes, open your mouth. And that's how Aaron died. Parak Chaf, Pasuk Chaf Vav. Rashi tells us the whole procedure. He said, close your mouth, close your eyes. Rashi says, immediately Moshe desired that Misa. This is what it means, Ka'ashar Meis Aharon Achicha. The Misa that you desired. How do you see, from the fact that Hashem said that you'll die the death that Aaron died, that Moshe desired that death? How do we see from that pasuk that just because Hashem said you're going to die the death that Aaron died, how do we know that Moshe Rabbeinu desired that death? Okay, next. This is I'm really troubled by. Why did Moshe Rabbeinu make a copper snake? Hashem didn't tell him to make a copper snake. Hashem told him to make a snake. Says Rashi, Moshe said, Hashem called it Nachash. And nechoshes, copper, is similar in etymology to nachash. So therefore I'm going to make sure to make the snake out of copper. I mean, is that really a compelling reason to make the snake out of copper? Because copper sounds like nachash? Hashem told him, make a snake. I don't know, he could have used bronze, he could have used the platinum, he could have used steel, iron. No, I'm going to use copper because copper sounds like snake. Did Moshe really think that's what Hashem wanted because it sounds the same? And final question on Chukas before we come to Balak. The question is that we know that when Klal Yisrael were walking through the Nachal Arnoin, so the Eretz Yisrael, there were Amorim hiding out in the clefts of the rock, and there were protrusions coming out of one side of the mountain, and the protrusions went into the clefts, and they crushed the Amorim to death. Rashi says the mountain of Eretz Yisrael shook and went out toward the mountain of Chutz La'aretz like a shivcha that goes out to greet her mistress. Isn't that unusual that Eretz Yisrael should be compared to a shivcha and Chutz La'aretz should be compared to the gevirta? Shouldn't it have been the other way around? Shouldn't Eretz Yisrael be comparable to the gevirta and Chutz La'aretz be compared to the shivcha? Okay, those are my questions on Parshas Chukas. I wish everybody a wonderful Shabbos, and I want to share with you some insights on Balak and some questions on Balak as well.